we now come to public participation, and the first is the public forum component of that, and we have a couple of students from the broadcasting school who came to visit the council yesterday, and it was decided amongst themselves that they would come and take advantage of the 5 minutes public forum to make a presentation to the council. So can I welcome all of the students from the broadcasting school, and can I particularly welcome Joey Dwyer and Katie Scotcher to the table. Thank you.
Kia ora, my name is Katie Scotcher, this is Joey Dwyer, and we are first year journalism students at the New Zealand Broadcasting School. Firstly, thank you for letting us speak to you today about some issues we've either faced since moving to Christchurch for our studies, or for some of the class a large majority of their lives. We'll be talking today briefly about our experiences with the Christchurch metro system and issues students face with nightlife in Christchurch and ways to fix these issues. So before moving to Christchurch, a number of us were informed of its fantastic, user-friendly and efficient public transport system. Sadly, this is not what a lot of us have experienced. As students, a majority of us rely on the metro system to take us to class and back every day, and have frequently been faced with uncomfortable situations. These include a bus packed to the brim of high school students, standstill traffic down Riccarton Road, or being confronted by people that have put our safety and the safety of others at risk. The service received here is not worth the $30+ we spend a week to get to school and back due to the lack of student fares. To give you an example, a couple of weeks ago, a girl in our class was on a bus to the airport at 3 p.m. The bus was packed with school students varying in ages, and the journey lasted around 40 minutes. A couple on board were having an argument for a large majority of the time, involving aggressive language being used towards the bus driver and directly to one another. The school children on the bus and our classmate involved were really frightened by the behaviour, but had no choice but to sit and listen as every other step was taken. This is only one example of the sort of situations we've been exposed to, and we're not the only group affected. More frequently than not, people using wheelchairs or prams struggle to use our public transport system due to the confined spaces provided on some of the vehicles. It is important to recognise that some of the newer buses do provide the appropriate amount of space for both the prams and wheelchairs, but sadly this is just the newer buses. We believe it would benefit people using wheelchairs or prams to let them know whether or not the scheduled bus will provide the appropriate amount of room for all of them. We also believe assessing the way current bus drivers deal with unsafe situations and creating a solution from these findings would also be very beneficial. Providing a safe and effective public transport system in Christchurch is easily achievable, as it has been done across the globe in places like Frankfurt, Singapore and Munich. Even cities like Wellington are leading the way with their economical trolley system that provides users with free Wi-Fi and snap-on, snap-off card scheme. After the earthquake, the system was given the opportunity to rebuild systems like the metro, and with the system becoming less and less popular among users, it's time to rebuild this key factor within our city.
Hello, as Katie mentioned, my name is Joey Dwyer, and I'll be discussing the nightlife in Christchurch, some issues facing it and some ideas as to how these issues can be dealt with or improved. After the earthquake in 2011, the Christchurch city centre took a huge hit. If the earthquake hadn't happened, then I'm sure that going to town in Christchurch would match the Otago, Wellington and Auckland student experience. And I want to quickly mention that we are not promoting the binge drinking culture in Christchurch. We want to encourage a safer, more refined, vibrant and exciting hub for these young adults to spend their Thursday, Friday and Saturday nights. Having a main hub where there are a selection of clubs or bars to go to would be ideal. On a Thursday night, there are only 2 clubs available off Madras Street, and on a Saturday night, usually just off St Asaph Street. It is unsafe for anyone who wants to move between these bars on either of these nights, especially with intoxicated people around. News Hub's recent research into assaults, sex attacks and robberies in public places found that the area in the central city, including St Asaph Street, was one of the highest rates for these attacks in all of Canterbury. These violent attacks and the distance between these venues is a big reason as to why people tend to either stay in one place or not go out at all. And if you're at the Foundry University bar, while it's doing very well at the moment, it's simply miles away from the city centre, so you can only really stay there. It would be fantastic to see a monitored hub for these venues in our city centre to provide young adults with a refined and safe environment to drink. Just to recap both our points, we feel the bus system in Christchurch is not living up to its full potential. It'd be great to see this changed as it affects a large part of our community, and it won't take much to get the ball rolling on this one. The faults we see in the bus system affect such a diverse range of people, and we can't stress enough just how much this will improve our city. The nightlife in Christchurch is something that would mainly affect the youth of the city, and we know the City Council is trying to find ways to make Christchurch a student's number one choice of study, and this will certainly affect that in a great way. Bringing life back to Christchurch is something that has been ongoing since the quakes, and in a hub where people can go out with their friends and have a great time without feeling unsafe or threatened is just what we need. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. Look, I mean, the thing is that you could have had 5 minutes each, so I'm going to allow a couple of minutes of questions, and I see there's Tim, Phil. Yep.
As you're young and you're fresh and you're studying, etc., so you'll be very bright. So what are your thoughts with regards to ECAN's putting up the prices of the buses because of lack of use, the theory behind it? What are your thoughts on that?
If they put the bus prices up, it would probably be really unrealistic for a lot of students to get to school. I know that as soon as you turn 18, you go from paying, I think, $15 a week to $30 a week, and that's already on top of you have to pay living costs and everything else. And as students, we don't have time to work and earn extra money to pay for that. So it'd just be really...
Or to go to bars, etc. Yeah.
That's right.
Look, my question's around the public transport too, and thank you for the challenges. You'll be aware that we don't run the buses, we provide the infrastructure. So my question really is around running the buses, a bit like Tim's, but it's currently the model is called a hub and spokes model. Okay, so especially on the smaller routes, people are required to change from one bus to another, and I'm just wondering how you think that might affect young people using our buses.
I think in some cases it might put people off catching the bus. I know when I first moved here, I'm from Wellington, and I was really, really scared to catch the bus, and when I knew that I had to change different buses and stuff, it was really off-putting, and I mean, you don't have to pay extra, so that isn't really an issue with that, but it is kind of, when you're a student and you're young and you're going through these different areas and you don't know them very well, it's quite daunting having to get off one bus, wait for another, oh, is that the right bus? Yeah.
Thank you. And look, I just comment that this is very timely for us on both issues, because we've got an agenda item about having a joint public transport committee to actually achieve the things that you've asked us to do. So thank you.
Glenn and then Paul.
Thank you. My question was actually over that hubs and spoke model, just your views on whether or not it's working, but it sounds like it's not.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm not a big fan.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm with you on that.
So many are.
Paul.
I'm just interested to know, you talked about both the bus transport system and the issues with going out at night to bars and clubs around safety. Have you given any consideration to what needs to happen so you feel safer?
Well, the surveillance on the buses could be improved.
The behaviour of bus drivers.
Yeah, bus drivers
Buses and
the drivers could be treated a little bit better. They vary. Some are really nice, some are downright rude.
And they're not very, I don't know what the word is, but people walk on with alcohol all the time. I was on a bus to Papanui on Sunday. A guy walked on with a bottle of Scrumpy and was drinking it on the bus, and the bus driver didn't do anything.
Yeah, but they're pretty vulnerable too, aren't they?
Just get them all up to that really high standard that we're looking for, that we see in other areas.
And you mentioned around moving from one venue to another and feeling unsafe. Have you given any thought, is that to do with lighting, or is it to...
lighting could improve that. Just having a few more, like I said, I talked about a hub, or maybe even just more bars on the street, or just more security could help with that too. I was going to bring up that in Wellington they actually have a bus for students that can take them back to their halls. That could be an option late at night when you're at a hall, which is a good 15-minute drive all the way away from the city, and normally you have to pay heaps for that to your organiser. So the driver could be good to get some kind of transport system in there, which could potentially be free as well.
Well, we used to have a free electric bus running around the CBD, and I think we're very keen to see that reinstated at some point. And probably the time is coming sooner rather than later in that regard. Yeah. Oh, look, thank you very much. It's great that you were able to take the opportunity, and really appreciate you doing so.
Yeah, thank you for letting us speak.
Thank you. Well done. The next section is deputations by appointment, and trying to think of the order here, but Christine Wilson-Smith is coming to speak on the Littleton Port Recovery Plan update. Wilson. Sorry, they've given you an extra Smith attached to you. Oh, I know why, because they replaced your name with Paula's. But they forgot to take her surname off. Thanks, Christine.
Okay. Ultimately, the purpose of this deputation this morning is to support the prescriptive statement of intent to City Council from LPC. However, the board was recently briefed by LPC on their draft design guide for Dampier Bay, which sets the standards expected for public open space and the access to the waterfront at Dampier Bay. While the board was happy with most aspects of the content of the design guidelines, we were very disappointed by the lack of early involvement by the community. The board is concerned that the process may not meet community expectations as to what's going to be happening down at Dampier Bay. So basically, that's a concern, and I would also like to talk, not just as a board member, but as a person that lives in Littleton, who lived there all my life, I was born there, about the real disconnect between the community and the port company. I obviously have respect for what the port does. I've got a very real job to do there, and I've had many family members been employed by them over the years. But I am also really concerned about when the wharf was physically fenced off, there was a barrier that most people in the community feel was put up between the communication with the community and the port company. Coming here today, I did a quick survey of different people that come into where I work about their feelings about the lack of consultation over the Dampier Bay plan, and they're very disappointed themselves. They said, what does that mean to the township of Littleton and the cafes and the bars and all the other things? They're really struggling at the moment, you know, to keep things going, and also there's a real mistrust as to whether it's actually going to even happen, because things have been promised to the community in the past that have never eventuated. So we hear the extremists in Littleton that get really irate about all past promises and where's the money gone, stuff like that. But then we have people that are just generally concerned about what does this mean to our community, and how do we engage with port company from a community level. Port company would say that they put up their port houses on the corner of London and Oxford Street, which have been beneficial, I would say, only to a few. I think the majority of the Littleton community have a real distrust of what LPC are doing, and there's also been comments about well, people think it's a lovely thing to be able to access the waterfront, and that again, the real concerns about the safety of getting people down there because of the whole Norwich Quay issue and with the amount of trucks that use that street. So for the board, we would like to try and find ways to engage more with directly with port company, and At our last board meeting, we were briefed also by the Port Liaison Committee, which was set up many years ago in regards to the port noise. We have suggested that it might be a good idea that there be a board member on that committee as another way of trying to engage. But I find it difficult too, living and working in the community when people want some real answers about what is happening with the port. You know, is this going to happen? I mean, I can only tell them what I know, but I do think there needs to be a lot more goodwill for people to start believing that the port company are going to be delivering on what they're saying, especially with access back into the wharf. I think just on a local level too, Port Company were very well known at one stage for funding community projects that no longer exist in Littleton, and were very minimal, and I think that was another way that people felt like that the port were actually caring about the community by the funding that they used to give out to different groups and that. And even to try, I've heard from various local organisations that have gone to Port Company for funding. They said try and even get to the people that even talk about it is a nightmare. They just feel like they're blocked in every way. So I think really the disappointments are about the lack of community engagement, but also I think lack of communication in general. I don't know how you fix it. With all due respect, a lot of people do ask, where's City Council and all of this as owners of the Port Company? I don't know what to say to that, sorry. But it's a question that's quite often asked, why are they not directing, why is City Council not directing the port, you know, in other areas? I felt like I just needed to express that because I do hear it a lot in the community. So there's willingness from the community to work with Port Company, but there seems to be a reluctance, a perceived reluctance from the port itself. And I do understand they are a business and they're there to make money, but in all my lifetime that I've lived in Littleton, I actually worked on the waterfront at one stage when I first left school in the canteen there, and sitting down actually waiting to catch the Diamond Harbour launch the other day, and I felt really sad because there is such a disconnect, not just physically, but there's just seems like there's barriers put up everywhere, you know, the seen ones and the invisible ones. And I just think that I don't know, it'd be nice to see that there's some sort of intervention somewhere to try, or some sort of facilitation at some level where the community can start having some real engagement with the port, because like I say, I've lived there all my life and I have never experienced this disconnect in all the time I've lived there, and I think it's a shame because it really, whilst it's support, I think the port and the community are one.
Yes.
So basically, you know, like I say, the reason for this deputation really is to bring those disappointments to council today, and to see really how we find a way forward, because I mean, port recovery is going to be a long process, and I think another thing I was going to actually mention, which is probably not really relevant, but our local sports grounds and yachting facilities and that, there's a big question mark over whether they will exist because of the risk assessment that's being done as a result of the ships returning, cruise ships coming back to Littleton, which everybody wants. But there's all these unanswered things which people understand, you know, these assessments have to be done. There's just, at the moment, a lot of confusion as to where the community are heading as a result of the port recovery.
I think that's an incredibly powerful point, because communication is absolutely core critical to working together on the recovery of the whole of Littleton. Although it's Littleton port recovery to one extent, it is the recovery of the whole of the Littleton area. I used to live there, so I'm listening to your plea with great interest. Andrew, did you have a question or a comment that you wanted to add? Because I'm just mindful of coming to the end of the time, which is...
Yeah, sure. No, I mean, I'm happy to make some comments, but I can do that in the context of the item when we get there rather than now, if you prefer.
Yep, no, that's fine. That's fine. But, thank you very much. And I mean, it's really important that we hear from the community board in this respect, for the sake of the understanding of the report when we get to it. But I don't think that there's anyone around this table that will disagree with the essence, which is that you can't have a recovery absent the community, and the community can't have a recovery absent the port. It goes together hand in hand.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you.
So the next deputation is in relation to item 30, operation of the Freedom Camping Bylaw 2015 over the 2015-16 summer season. And I'd like to invite first Chris Goldspink to represent the French farm community. Oh, and Jan Cook. Oh, sorry, somebody came along and crossed your name off my list, so now you're back on the list.
Just a supporter.
Yeah, that's fine, but welcome both of you.
Right, well, good morning. I'm Dr. Chris Goldspink, so I'm a permanent resident of French Farm, and Jan Cook is also a permanent resident. As you would be aware, French Farm residents recently participated with Christchurch City Council in an active experiment in how to best manage freedom camping in New Zealand. And I think many lessons have been learned on all sides, and so what we want to talk to you about today is what we think some of those key lessons have been, and as a result of having learnt what we have, what we think needs to happen going forward, and we would like you to take the issue on our behalf and on the behalf of other affected communities. So I'm sure many of you have seen photographs of what's gone on in a variety of sites. These were photographs of what was happening at French Farm during the peak of this season. You can see very large numbers of people camped very close to a road that's zoned 70 kilometres an hour. If there's one thing that I'd like you to keep clear in your mind, it is that as a site for mass camping, this site is distinctly unsuitable. Toilet block you can just see as a little cream blob in the far distance along the streetscape there. That toilet block's on the opposite side of the road to where people camp. This is just a road reserve, it's fairly narrow. People have little choice but to camp very close to the road. And when they accumulate in the numbers that we saw here, upwards of 50 in a night, if you drive past there, you will really have to scratch your head to wonder how that's possible. Then you can see that we were confronting some quite serious health and safety issues, as well as issues of adverse visual impact and impact on the environment. Now, the active experiment was really a result of the introduction of the new bylaws, but what we've experienced in French Farm was not a direct result of those bylaws. It was arguably exacerbated a little bit by them, but you can see here these are peak numbers that we've logged over the years, and the big dramatic change that's evident there is the shift from self-contained being the dominant form of freedom camping to non-self-contained, and you can see that it was already starting to rise quite dramatically before the bylaws were made. This is a statement made by a resident. Some of us might choose to use different analogies, but the point is that when this juggernaut rolled into town, there was a serious adverse impact on the visual amenity of this area. Now, given that it's that visual amenity that most people are coming to enjoy, then that is an issue both from a tourism management point of view, but of course it also had a direct and material impact and an ongoing impact on local residents as well. I want to make clear, because the media hasn't always been helpful in this regard, that as a community we do not see this as a problem resulting from the nature of the demographics or the people that are participating in this form of tourism. This is a problem that arises from sets of expectations and from scale. I've chosen that photograph. The two women that are walking down towards the shore there are taking their breakfast dishes down to rinse in the sea. That photograph was taken after the 1st of March, once we knew that there had been a serious discharge of untreated effluent into that harbour, only about 50 metres from where they're walking. But before the 10th, when the beach was closed, and at the time that was taken, there were no meaningful warnings to any of the people who were camping there as to the risk that was involved. As I approached those two young women and called out to them, they immediately started talking about how they had a special pad and they weren't going to use soaps and detergents in the sea. So they were wanting to do the right thing. Those people were environmentally aware and they were, thinking they were doing the right thing. My concern, of course, was what the sea was maybe going to do to them, not what they were going to do to the sea. And they were somewhat shocked when I explained to them the situation that occurred there and the risk that they were exposing themselves to. As a part of our learning the lessons from participating in this experiment, initially individuals were responding to council, making sure that the administration was aware of the issues as we saw them. We found that rather ineffective, and so we did meet as a group. 20 people gathered to share experiences and to reflect on what we thought was going on and what might be done about it. There were 15 who were unable to attend because there are a lot of batch owners, of course, in that area, and so I went and spoke with them face to face or had email exchanges with them to canvass their views. In the end, the submission that we provided to the community board was supported by 28 residents. 5 more agreed with the need to effect greater control and only 2 disagreed. So I was pretty happy with the level of agreement we were able to achieve as a community about an issue that is quite contentious. Now, it's contentious for a number of reasons that I want to share with you because they seem to be the sorts of patterns that regularly occur when we engage with people around this issue. And the first one is this. And interestingly, a few of us met with Amy Adams recently around this issue, and she said pretty much this is where Cabinet began as well. That freedom camping was seen as a part of the way New Zealanders live life. It's been a freedom that we've enjoyed for many years. And that's where the community began as well. Began. There was a concern that, well, we've all done this, our kids are doing it now. Should we really be trying to control this, or what is the best course of action? The conclusion we came to, though, was that was actually a non-argument. What we're dealing with now is not the same phenomenon as the low-key, low-scale, diffused freedom camping that many of us have actually participated in over the years. This is a new phenomenon that's a result of mass tourism, and we concluded that there was really no going back. As New Zealand continues to promote tourism, it's going to have to learn now to deal with a different type of phenomenon. The insight that Amy gave us, though, was that in many ways the Freedom Camping Act was founded on a false premise. It was trying to manage a phenomenon that doesn't exist anymore. And it failed, we think, to fully anticipate the challenges that are now unfolding as we move and try and deal with this new phenomenon. The second sort of argument that came up was it would be okay if we could control the numbers. And I think one of the key learnings, and I think the council administrative staff would very much agree with this, the key learnings that came from the implementation of the bylaw was that actually this phenomenon is very difficult to manage. you're dealing with highly transient groups of people. The French farm foreshore, numbers of 40 cars would assemble nightly. Some of those, as you saw from the early photographs, would park unwisely. If we as residents went down there and suggested that maybe where they were camping was unsafe and moved them on, within 10 minutes someone would have occupied that spot. When people from council came along and did the same thing, again, it's like a highly dynamic animal. It's continually adapting, and because of the pressure on the site, it proved pretty much impossible to actually effect meaningful control over it. There were also issues of timing, so you could have someone come around and move people on, but after dark, when there was nobody there, there was a great deal of a creative interpretation of the restrictions and people camping out of the area. So experience shows that we cannot meaningfully control at a reasonable cost this phenomenon using the current tools over an area the size of the Banks Peninsula. So it could be quite a different set of challenges within an urban context, but within an area like Banks Peninsula, this is a very difficult thing to deal with. Imagine wrestling with a balloon. As we erect signs to try and restrict a hotspot that it's broken out in one area, the pressure just builds in another and the hotspots move around. And there's nothing within the scope of the Freedom Camping Act that allows us to put in place effective controls around that. And it's for that reason that we think, and you'll see later, that we support a full review of the bylaw. And the reason we argue for a full review is that some of the issues that need to come to terms with here are going to take national coordination. They're not going to be able to be solved at a local level, and those negotiations and reaching agreement with other parties is going to take time, and that can't be achieved through a partial review. Third and final argument, we see this coming up in debate within the media on a regular basis. They're valuable for the economy and we should build better facilities. Indeed, at a public meeting that was held at Devotional, representatives of the Freedom Camper community were arguing for their value to the community and pushing this very point. The point we'd like to make about that is that this is a low spend per day segment, and so when we use industry level criteria for assessing what's the return, what's the bang for buck from this market segment, it looks less rosy. The reason that they bring a reasonable amount to the economy is because they tend to stay longer, and so even though they spend only a little per day, there is a net contribution. What we think the French farm experience shows, though, is that there is a cost. And a distinctive characteristic of this particular group of tourists is that they demand services that are the same services that were basically built for small populations that populate our country towns throughout New Zealand. So either the toilet at French Farm failed. It failed because it was designed to service far, far fewer people than came to be using it. But that scales at least to Banks Peninsula, because what do we know we have problems with in Akaroa? Problems with waste management. The waste management issue has been an ongoing sore that has yet to have an effective solution. Wainui as well. Issues of waste management there have been on the agenda, your agenda, for a long time, and there's yet to be an effective solution. So we're talking waste facilities, water facilities, roading facilities, bridge facilities. All of these things come under heavy pressure from large volumes of people who, on a day-per-day basis, are actually spending relatively little. So in effect, the community...
Sorry, we've gone over time. Okay, sorry. So if you can speed through
the community is effectively subsidising this sector. And we saw that in graphic form in the favour of the toilet facilities. The quote that's up there now was a quote that was given to me 5 days before we in the community discovered the disaster that was unfolding at the head of the harbour there. So you can form your own conclusions about why that statement might have been made, but it was manifestly false. Here was the reality of the situation. The blue line is the amount of effluent that was being taken out of that facility on an ongoing basis. You can barely see it on the scale because it comprised 5,000 litres. Our estimate, based on the water flowing through that facility, because there was a meter put on the back of it, was that the discharge of effluent into the upper harbour was of the order of 700 to 800,000 litres last season alone. Now, the gap between those two lines is arguably the abyss into which effective administration fell. We can leave it there because we have given you a separate list of what we would like to be done.
Do you want to flick up the last page, because
Yep.
I think that might be quite useful just for others that don't have it in front of them, just to see what the community is asking for.
So we urge you to work with our councils, the local government association, the national government, to review the Freedom Camping Act. We think that that is not giving you the tools you need to be able to effect control, and primarily because of the permitted unless prescribed clause that is at the heart of that act. Really, that means that this activity can and will likely, once the cat gets out of the bag, be a highly diffused phenomena that is effectively impossible to manage. And so we put that issue to Amy Adams. She sort of took it on board, but we think that needs to be pursued with some vigour. In the bylaw, a great deal of emphasis was put on the distinction between self-contained and non-self-contained. We think there are some serious issues about the viability of that distinction, and unless the viability of that can be extended and ensured, it's unwise to be placing so much importance on that within the bylaw process. We're asking you really to take a full review, and in the meantime extend the existing restrictions on the past hotspots, but to extend that to include a base peninsular ward restriction on non-self-contained until the new bylaw has been put in place.
Thank you. So I did want you to put up that slide, because I think that there'll be others sitting in the room that would want to see that it's a multi-layered approach that you're recommending, from working with other councils, local government New Zealand, to review the Freedom Camping Act. So that's at the political level, and then our own bylaws, and then a temporary change. But I particularly wanted you to have based decisions on suitability of an area, freedom camping based on evidence which has been ground truth and tested against local knowledge, because I really think that summed up for me, and I wanted that kind of on the record. So thank you very much. We are going to move to the item of business immediately after the next deputation, and that will enable you to stay for the debate on the report.
Right, thank you.
Thank you very much. And could I now invite